That empty seat beside me wasn't just about a more comfortable flight. It was a metaphor. Here I am, reading about women standing up against impossible odds, women risking everything, refusing to disappear, even when the world tries to crush them. And I'm sitting here thinking about armrests and legroom. And it hit me. I was already programming myself to shrink. I wasn't being open-minded when I boarded that plane. I was making myself smaller before I even knew if I needed to. Hi there, I'm Wendy Rimmelsbacher, and welcome to the podcast show Dim to Daring. Do you feel like there's something bigger waiting for you, but you're not sure how to make it happen? You're in the right place. I'm here to bring you inspiring stories, powerful insights, and practical strategies to help you reignite your spark, realign with your purpose, and take those bold steps towards the life you were meant to live. Let's dive in, because you're not finished yet. You're just getting started. I want to tell you a story today. It's simple and it's ordinary. It happened at 30,000 feet on a flight home from visiting my beautiful mom and aunt. But it turned into one of those moments where something small cracks open and suddenly you're seeing life differently. And I think it might crack something open for you too. So let me take you there. If you've ever done one of those all-day travel marathons, if you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. 3 flights, south to north, from one remote town to another. The kind of travel plans where you're crossing time zones and navigating tiny airports that feel like they're held together with duct tape and optimism. Where the same employees at the counter are the ones on the tarmac getting all the checked luggage on the plane. One of the little airports is titled an international airport, and it cracks me up because there is only one boarding room with 2 doors. Okay, let's keep it professional and let's call them gates. There's 2 gates. You know what else these tiny airports have in common with the big ones? Airport snacks that somehow manage to be both unhealthy and expensive, which is why I packed my own food, adding even more weight to my already maxed out carry-on luggage. But at least I won't be spending $14 on an overpriced snack. I set my alarm for 3 a.m. to head to the airport. Soon I'm cleared to board the first flight and feeling very optimistic. Everything's going as planned, right? Then comes the announcement. We're delayed. Of course we are. But I remind myself about the long layovers built in at each of the airports, so no need to start worrying yet. I've got buffer time. It'll all be fine. I think maybe I'll get some work done during the delay. So I find an outlet, pull out my laptop, and settle in. And then realize the airport Wi-Fi is either non-existent or so slow it might as well be. So I answer a few emails on my phone, browse social media for longer than I planned, and mostly just wait. The second flight requires changing terminals and going through security again. So I'm getting rid of the water in my water bottle and consolidating any packing I had dismantled. Oh well, no need to get irritated. This is what we sign up for when we travel, right? Just keep moving. Then the third flight gets delayed and the gate gets switched to a satellite terminal, which means a shuttle ride and more waiting. And suddenly, I'm finding myself doing that mental math. Okay, if we leave in 20 minutes, and it's a 1-hour flight, and I have a 45-minute drive home, am I going to be starving by the time I get there? I don't know about you, but making sure I have food when I'm hungry is a very big deal for me. It's not dramatic. It's just that everything feels harder when you're running on empty. That's when the low-grade anxiety starts humming in the background. The whole experience is exhausting in a way that goes beyond just being physically tired. Not only did I get up way too early, let's face it, to leave from remote areas, you have to get up in the middle of the night to begin your journey. As the day progresses, your eyes are dry from stale airplane air, You've had too much coffee, trying to stay alert, and not enough water. And there's this exhaustion from all the micro decisions and constant vigilance. Which gate? Where's my boarding pass? Do I have time to use the bathroom? Should I eat now or wait? What time is it? So by the time I board my last flight, another short one that will finally take me home, I am done, completely spent. I'm not even trying to be productive anymore. I'm not trying to optimize anything. I just want to get through the next hour and get home. And mostly, I don't want to hear the word delay. You know that moment when you step onto a plane? As I board the plane, I walk down the aisle with my bag held close. Not because I'm shrinking, but because I am totally aware. I know exactly how much space I'm working with, and I'm not about to clock someone in the head with my carry-on. I find my seat. It's an aisle seat, row 22, and the flight attendant comes on with her announcement. This is a completely full flight today. We need everyone to place one carry-on in the overhead bin, and any other bags or personal items need to go under the seat in front of you. And I think, yep, of course it is. Every flight is full these days. So I settle into my seat, and here's where it gets interesting. I'm setting myself up. Armrests, the space under the seat where my personal item goes in front of me, and configuring my legroom. This is my area. I paid for this seat, and I'm going to use what's mine. But I'm also navigating a shared reality. My elbows stay within my armrest zone, not because I'm apologizing for having arms, but because that's the boundary. Now, my leg might drift towards the aisle when I shift positions, and I pull it back when someone passes. Not out of fear of getting in trouble, but out of basic spatial awareness. You know this dance, right? It's not about making yourself smaller. It's totally about existing fully in your space while being conscious that you're sharing a metal tube with, about 150 other people doing the exact same thing. And here's what I realized. There's a difference between being considerate and being diminished. I can take up my full seat, use my overhead bin space, stretch when I need to, and still be the person who smiles at the frazzled parent in the row behind me, a person who doesn't recline into someone's laptop, who moves my bag when someone needs to get by. That's not shrinking. That's just being a human among other humans. Okay, on my second and longest flight, something unexpected happens. The airplane doors close. You know that solid thunk noise that means we're sealed in and about to push back from the gate? The engines start their low rumble, and the flight attendants are doing their final checks. They're closing overhead bins. They're telling the last few stragglers to take their seats and buckle up. And I'm sitting there in 22D, waiting for someone to claim the middle seat next to me. But no one comes. The middle seat on this supposedly completely full flight stays empty. I know. I'm feeling pretty lucky. I look over at the woman by the window in 22F. She's already settled in and reading her book. And between us is just space. Beautiful space. The empty seat is sitting there like an unexpected gift. This lady and I just exchanged looks and smiled. I glanced around. The plane is packed. I can see every other row filled with people squeezed in together, negotiating armrests, trying to get comfortable in an inherently uncomfortable situation. But my row has this miracle space. And here's the thing. It happened again on my next flight. Twice in one day on 2 flights that were allegedly completely full. I ended up with an empty seat beside me. I remember thinking, what are the odds? But also thinking, don't question it, just accept it. So I did something I haven't done in months. I pulled out my Kindle and I just read. The book I was reading is one of those powerful historical novels about two sisters living in impossible circumstances during wartime. One sister is quiet, trying to keep her head down and protect her children. She's the one who thinks maybe if she's just careful enough, small enough, compliant enough, she can survive without losing everything. The other sister, however, is rebellious. She's on fire with the need to do something, to fight back, to resist. She can't make herself small. She won't, even when it's dangerous. And the book is about how both of these women, in their different ways, find courage. How both of them refuse to disappear, even when the entire world is trying to crush them. They both realize their actions matter. I'd been reading this book for weeks. And you know how it is when you're a driven woman with a full life. Reading becomes this fragmented thing. 5 minutes here while you're waiting for your coffee to brew. 10 minutes there before bed when your eyes are already closing. Always productive. Always pushing the bookmark forward just a little bit at a time. And never really sinking into the full story. But on that flight, with that gift of an empty seat next to me, I just sank into their world. For hours, the whole flight. No emails pulling at my attention, no productive multitasking where I'm half reading and half thinking about work, no voice in my head saying I should be doing something more important with this time. It was just me, this story, and this luxurious stretch of time that I didn't have to earn or justify. And it felt like the most indulgent thing I'd done in months. I don't believe that reading is lazy. I know it's not. But because I gave myself permission to simply enjoy it without justification. And somewhere between chapters, I'm reading about one sister doing something impossibly brave. She's risking everything to help others. She's exhausted, scared, but she refuses to make herself small. She takes up dangerous, bold, necessary space in a world that wants her silent and invisible. And I'm reading about the other sister who's learning that the quiet acts of resistance matter too. That protecting what you love, standing your ground in small ways, saying no when you're expected to say yes, that takes up important space too. These two women, in their different ways, were refusing to shrink. That empty seat beside me wasn't just about a more comfortable flight. It was a metaphor. Here I am, reading about women standing up against impossible odds, women risking everything, refusing to disappear, even when the world tries to crush them. And I'm sitting here thinking about armrests and legroom. And it hit me. I was already programming myself to shrink. I wasn't being open-minded when I boarded that plane. I was making myself smaller before I even knew if I needed to. There's a difference between awareness and just disappearing. Between being mindful of shared space and assuming you don't deserve space at all. I didn't wait to see if the seat next to me would be empty. I didn't even consider the possibility that there might be room to breathe. I went straight into survival mode, into that practiced, automatic thing I do where I prepare for discomfort. I just accepted that things would be tight before I even knew if they would be. And I thought, how often do I do this in life? How often do I brace for tightness that might not even be there? How often do I make myself smaller before I even know if I need to? As driven women, we're so used to full flights, aren't we? Full calendars with back-to-back meetings and no margin for the unexpected. Full expectations from our jobs, our families, our communities, ourselves. We're carrying a full mental load, tracking everyone's schedules, anticipating everyone's needs, and making sure nothing drops. We live in a constant state of preparedness for the squeeze, and we get really, really good at it. We learn to shrink ourselves to fit. We become efficient, compact, and less demanding. We push through discomfort by convincing ourselves that this is just how it is. This cramped feeling is what responsibility looks like. This is what it means to be capable and what it costs to be successful. And most of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. It's so automatic that we just assume life is supposed to feel tight. We accept it as normal that there's never quite enough room, not enough time, not enough energy, not enough space to be fully ourselves. But sitting there next to that empty seat, hours deep into this story about women who refused to shrink even when their lives depended on it, I had this thought that stopped me and had me questioning my beliefs, habits, and assumptions. What if space is actually allowed? What if ease is allowed? What if we don't always have to carry everything so tightly? This is so dim to daring, because dim isn't always about being desperately unhappy or stuck in some obvious crisis. Sometimes dim is just, living compressed. Living in a constant state of bracing. Living like you're constantly on a full flight. Shoulders hunched, taking up the smallest possible version of yourself. It's going through life with your voice a little quieter than it should be. Making yourself convenient for everyone else. Saying yes when you mean no, because saying no feels like taking up too much space with your boundaries. It's apologizing for things that don't require apologies, for speaking up, for having needs, for fully existing. It's that feeling of always being a little bit uncomfortable in your own life, like nothing quite fits. Like you're always making yourself smaller to squeeze into spaces that weren't designed for you to be your full self. And daring? Daring is the moment you decide, no more. No more shrinking, no more apologizing for needing space, no more making yourself smaller so everyone else can be more comfortable. Daring is saying, I'm allowed to take up space, not aggressively and not at the expense of others, but unapologetically. Daring is recognizing that you don't have to earn the right to fully exist. You're allowed to claim space simply because you're here and you matter. Like those two sisters in the book I was reading, who each found their own way to refuse to disappear. Who each decided that their lives, their voices, and their presence mattered enough to fight for. So I want to ask you something today, and I really want you to sit with this question. Where in your life have you been bracing for tightness before you even knew you needed to? It could be in your calendar, packing every hour full before anyone asks you to, or in your relationships, making yourself smaller before anyone has indicated that your full self is too much. Perhaps it's at work, downplaying your accomplishments, apologizing for taking up time in meetings. Okay, here's the harder question. Where might there actually be an empty seat available for you right now? Where might life be offering you room that you haven't claimed because you didn't think you were allowed to? It could be in your day. You could take a real lunch break, not eating at your desk, but actually stepping away. You could set up a carpool trade with another parent you trust, creating a mutual schedule opener that gives you both back time you didn't know was there. Or on your weekend, you could let yourself rest on Saturday morning. Not productive rest, just rest without guilt. What about in your voice? There might be space for you to speak up in the meeting where you usually hold back. Or in your dreams, there might be actual room, calendar space, mental space, permission for that project you keep postponing, that creative leap you envision, that thing you want to try but keep telling yourself there's no room for. So here's what I want you to do this week. Take one small, concrete action that creates space in your life. Just one. You could block off 30 minutes on your calendar this week for absolutely nothing, and then protect that space like it matters, because it does. Or say no to something you'd normally say yes to out of obligation. You could take a real lunch break tomorrow. Or pick up that book you've been meaning to read and actually read it, not as professional development, just because you want to. What about speaking up in that conversation this week where you usually stay quiet? Whatever you choose, here's the key part. Notice how it feels. Notice if guilt shows up. It probably will. Just notice it. You don't have to act on it. Notice if it feels uncomfortable at first. You see, expansiveness can feel strange when you're used to living compressed. Notice what it feels like in your body. Does your breathing change? Do your shoulders relax? This action of noticing, this is the work. This is how we start to see our patterns clearly enough to change them. And if you're willing, send me a DM on Instagram and tell me what you choose. Tell me what you notice. I genuinely would love to hear what taking up space looks like for you this week. So in closing, here's what I want to leave with you today. Stop shrinking. Start shining. And take up space. You don't need anyone else's permission for this. You just need to give it to yourself. You're allowed to be here, fully here, not the compressed, accommodating version of yourself, the full, breathing, space-taking version. You're allowed to want things, to need things, to take up room with your voice, your ideas, your dreams, your boundaries, your presence. Life may be offering you more space than you think, but you have to be willing to claim it. So if this message landed with you today, please share this episode with a friend who needs a little breathing room right now. Take a screenshot, post it to your stories, tag me so I can reshare it. Because somewhere out there is another woman who's boarding the plane already making herself smaller, and she needs to hear that there might be an empty seat, that space might be allowed, that she's allowed to breathe. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for being willing to take up space. This is what Dim to Daring is all about, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for joining me today on Dim to Daring. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you subscribed, shared it with a friend, or left a review. It helps more women just like you discover the show. Remember, you're not finished yet. You're just getting started. Until next time, keep daring to grow and shine.